Okay, guys, this is our test you're going to take today. We're looking at it right now, and I want to point some things out to you before you actually start the test. Okay? So, here's a couple of things, all right? First of all, don't sweat the test. Don't go crazy about it. It's not going to be a huge deal. You know the information from the book. You've been listening to it. You've gone over the slideshows for each of the themes, so don't go crazy about this, okay? Look at the question that's in here, all right? You're going to choose one theme, one of ABC, and then you're going to choose 3 quotes from that theme, and then you're going to write 3 paragraphs, all right? One for each of the quotes, and you're going to tell me a couple of different things about that quote in each paragraph, all right? So it's kind of almost like written itself, no sweat. You're just going to go through and put down some of your thoughts, all right? So first of all right, you're going to choose one of the 3 themes. Here's our 3 themes: man-dog relationship, all right, pursuit of mastery, wild, law and order. Okay, this is all from Call of the Wild. Just like I said, you're going to write a 3-paragraph essay, and it's going to be about one of these 3 themes, okay? Let's go to here. Number 2. In the chart below, you're going to see all 3 themes and 5 quotes that help illustrate that theme throughout the story, all right? Choose one, either man-dog relationships, pursuit of mastery, wild, law and order, all right? Number 4, use any 3 of the quotes as the basis for your essay. Each paragraph should have to do with one of the quotes you choose. All right, so for each paragraph, one quote is going to be a paragraph. For instance, if you choose theme A, man-dog relationship, that theme would be what your essay is about. Each of the 3 paragraphs would be about different quotes from that theme. My first paragraph might be about the quote, John Thornton to Buck and Hal, "If you strike that dog again, I'll kill you," he at last managed to say in a choking voice. I would explain the following, all right? So for each of your paragraphs, and remember, each paragraph is one quote from one theme. You're going to first of all say what that quote means in your own words, all right? So if I was doing this one, I would say that has to do with the man-dog relationship. And because John Thornton says, "If you strike that dog again, I'll kill you," he's got a very big connection to Buck, all right? He's deeply connected to them. He loves him, and he's willing to kill if someone else hurts him, all right? What the quote has to do with the theme? Well, that has to do with the theme because men and dogs have really close relationships, and John Thornton exhibits one of those relationships. They're not just animals or pieces of property. Sometimes they can be very prized relationships, and they can be companions to the owners. Okay? Third thing I would say is this: why the quote's important to the rest of the story. This quote's important to the rest of the story right here because it shows that Buck finally finds this big, important person in his life to make him the dog that he has been striving to be his entire life. So I just verbalized one single paragraph about that quote, all right? So number 5 says, after you finish one paragraph, do the same thing with the other 2 quotes you choose for that theme, okay? Remember, one theme, 3 quotes within that theme. Lastly, 6, you don't have to write the quote out when you're writing your essay. You can just do the number of the quote from the charts that we're going to see in a second, all right? So this is our first theme, all right? Here are 5 quotes, okay? In excess of their own misery, here's our first. Hal, Charles, and Mercedes were callous to the suffering of their animals. Hal's theory, he practiced on others, was that one must get hardened. He started out preaching it to his sister and brother-in-law. He hammered the dogs with a club, okay? So that man-dog relationship is in there, okay? What is that saying about the man-dog relationship? Well, sometimes the man-dog relationship can be taken advantage of, and that does so in this quote, okay? The second quote says this: they're lazy, I tell you, and you've got to whip them to get anything out of them. That's their way. You ask anyone. Ask any of those men. Okay, now that's said by I believe that's Hal who says this. So what's that say about the man-dog relationship? Well, sometimes in the man-dog relationship, humans are trying to take advantage of them. All right, number 3. If you strike that dog again, I'll kill you. He at last managed to say in a choking voice. That's John Thornton. So what does that say about the man-dog relationship? Well, it's pretty easy, right? In the man-dog relationship, in that case, um, John Thornton is really close to this dog, and they're not just these cruel things. It's totally opposite of what Hal said in those previous paragraphs, that they can be companion animals. Okay. Number 4, love, genuine passion. Was for his the first time. He had never experienced it at Judge Miller's with the judges. He went hunting and tramping. It had been a working partnership with the judge's grandsons, pompous guardianship, with the judge himself a stately, dignified friendship. But love, that was feverish and burning, that was adoration, that was madness. It had been John Thornton who arouses that. Okay, so this shows that sometimes that man-dog relationship can be kind of empty and, fun, like, someone with a typical pet who's not really bonded to them but just goes around having a good time. But sometimes that man-dog relationship, when it comes to John Thornton, can be totally, involved in something that's really special and purposeful and meaningful. Okay? Last quote, as you love me, Buck, as you love me. So this comes from that part in the book when Buck is going to pull that 1,000-pound sled. And sometimes what this says about that man-dog relationship is that a dog will live up to the expectations or that you put in front of him. And in this case, it is Buck's strength, but it's also the strength of their relationship that gets him to perform that feat of pulling that sled. Okay? All right, this is Pursuit of Mastery. Okay? Here's our quote, first one. Well, Buck, my boy, he went on a genial voice. We've had ruction. The best thing we can do is to let it go at that. You've learned your place. I know mine. Be a good dog, and the goose hang high. Be a bad dog, and I'll whale the stuffing out of you. Understand? So the pursuit of mastery, right? So Hal, I think this is Hal who says this, or it might be the man in the red sweater. I'm not quite sure. He is saying this because he is trying to master Buck. He is trying to exert his authority. So he's trying to master and overcome Buck and who he is and try and get him to do what he wants. Okay, second quote. Buck had been purposely placed down between Dave and Solex that he might receive instruction. Apt scholar that he was. He had equally apt teachers, never allowing him to linger longer in error, enforcing their teaching with their sharp teeth before it was done. So well had he mastered his work. So here's the key word. He masters his work. So this has to do with the theme because he's pursuing mastery. He's listening to all the people who instruct him, okay? When he gets clubbed, he learns from that, and he becomes a master of himself, and he doesn't rise up against it. When he's being taught a lesson about the traces, well, then he goes and does that. He listens to it. He's trying to master himself and master his job. Third quote says, the first theft marked Buck as fit to survive in the hostile northern environment. It marked his adaptability, his capacity to adjust to ever-changing conditions, the lack of which would have meant a swift and terrible death. Okay? So this has to do with mastery because he learns to survive in this really harsh climate. So he masters this climate, right? He sees that theft is one way that he can survive this thing. All right? Number 4, at a bound, Buck took up the duties of leadership, and where judgment was required and quick thinking and quick acting, he's found himself superior to Spitz. He tries to master the sled. He becomes the lead person, and he takes up that responsibility. All right? And number 5, he killed a man, the noblest game of all, and he killed the face of law, club at fang. So he rises up against the Yeehats at the very end, and he takes them out, right? He kills them. So he masters, finally, this law of club and fang. He breaks it. He masters people who have been victimizing him and John Thornton by the end. And that's his pursuit of mastery in that quote. All right, the last one is the wild, law and order. Remember, it's not just law and order. We're in the wild now. Okay, so this first quote says, he's been beaten. He knew that, but he was not broken. He saw and for all that he stood no chance against a man with a club. He learned that lesson. And in all the day after his life, he never forgot it. That was a revelation. It was his introduction to the realm of the primitive, and again, as he looked at each brutal performance, The lesson was driven home to Buck, a man with a club and a lawgiver, and a man was to be obeyed, though not necessarily conciliated. What's that have to do with law and order? Well, it's wild law and order. So if you get clubbed, you have to learn that there's a certain price in this wild environment, right? And it's no longer how you feel and how you think and how you reason, what logic you have, what are the best reasons you can come up with, like it was back at the judges. There's a certain law that rules, and it's really about brutality, and people kind of club it into you or out of you. All right, number 2. David been suddenly jerked from the heart of civilization, flung into the heart of things. Primordial. And primordial is defined down here, things existing since the beginning of time. No lazy sun-kissed life was this, with nothing to do, it would love and be bored. Here he was neither rest nor a moment's safety, all was confusion and action. Life and limb were in peril, there was imperative, needed to constantly be alert. And for these dogs were not town dogs, they were savages, all of them, who knew no law but the law of club and fang. Okay? So this is, again, this wild law and order. It's not easy here like it was at the judges. It's not cozy. It's not comfortable. It was all about confusion and action, right? So from moment to moment, your life is in peril. That's what it really has to do with that theme. Number 3, Dave resented being taken out, grunting and growling. While the traces were unfastened, he whimpered broken-heartedly when Solex was in the position he held and served for so long. The trace with Trout was his. He was second to death, and he could not bear another dog should do his work. So the wild law and order is if you're kind of lagging behind or not holding up your end of the bargain, you get taken out and somebody else takes your position. Just like that. It's not going to take much, but that's what this wild law and order is all about. All right? Number 4 says they're lazy, I tell you. You've got to whip them to get anything out of them. We've seen that before. So this wild law is not, it's really about the survival of the fittest, like we talked about in the presentation. It's about who is strong, who's going to survive, who's going to get by, and that's really where it intersects with that theme. And lastly, if you strike that dog again, I'll kill you. Again, wild law and order. John Thornton doesn't make his case in a very eloquent, big speech. All he says is, if you do it again, I'm going to kill you. So that's really where it fits in with this theme, okay? So again, you're going to go back to, if you choose this theme, you're only choosing 3 of these quotes. You can get rid of 2. If you don't like these 2, do these 3, okay? Same thing with the other themes. Choose a theme and then choose 3 quotes that go with that theme, and then each of those 3 quotes has to be a paragraph in your essay that you write. Okay, so this just summarizes things once again. You're going to pick one theme, all right? It's either going to be wild law and order, pursuit of mastery, or man-dog relationship. Okay, you choose which one it's going to be, A, B, or C. Not all 3, just one. Then, within that theme, 3 quotes, all right? And each one of those 3 quotes becomes one of your 3 paragraphs. All right, quote number 1 becomes the first paragraph, quote number 2 becomes the second, quote number 3 becomes the third. Each paragraph should be should be about each of the 3 quotes you choose. Stick to that. Each paragraph should address all the following. All right, you're going to say what the quote means in that first paragraph. Let's say you're doing that. What does it mean? First bullet. Then you're going to say what the quote has to do with the theme, how it fits in with man-dog relationship or any of the other 2. And then lastly, why the quote is important to the rest of the story, what it has to do with what's going on in the plot. So show me that you've read and listened, or read the book, and that you know a little bit about what we've talked about, what those quizzes are about, and you can talk about some of these quotes and some of these characters. If you do that, you're going to be fine. All right? So great luck on this test, guys. Don't sweat it. Don't go crazy. Do your best. Try and do your best piece of writing possible, and I will give you the points for it. All right, thanks for listening. Great luck. Any questions, again, text me, email me, whatever you need to do.